This property isn't just any property. It is the best house, in my opinion, in Australia that I have ever seen.
Oh, that's amazing, man. That's it. Oh, come on.
It has to be ultra luxury. Did I know how much it was going to cost? No. Did I know how long it was going to take? No. But I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted something special. And I knew that...
Brad Moran is a former AFL player turned entrepreneur and property developer who brings the same drive from sports and business into real estate.
After selling his startup Citrusad for $205 million, he focused on transforming a mega mansion in Queensland into a landmark of luxury and innovation.
It has got everything. It's got 10 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, 9-car garage. It's got cinema rooms, poker rooms with smoke extractor, go-kart track. It has everything.
Was it a reno flip, or was it like, I just want to live there and I just know I've got a good deal?
I got to the point where I thought that I may not keep the home. I then wanted to create a series of experiences and stories. I thought of the house more as like a piece of art rather than a property with walls and bedrooms.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Unemployable podcast. Today is a little bit of a different podcast. There's not all the time that you get to meet a very talented human being like we met last week. Shannon Carson and I had the pleasure of being walked through one of the most, unbelievable properties I have ever seen, and probably I will never ever see again. And we've had Brad take us through his personal property, and we wanted to do a podcast about this. This property isn't just any property. It is the best house, in my opinion, in Australia that I have ever seen, and it is on a global stage. And not only that, but he is an ex-AFL player, professional AFL player, turned entrepreneur that sold a business for over $200 million and now has the best house in Australia. And we thought, you know what, let's get him on the pod. Let's get some B-roll over the podcast as well, so people can actually watch and listen. I highly recommend you guys watch and listen to this on YouTube, so you can actually see the home on the B-roll that we're going to have throughout this podcast. Brad Moran, thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, you guys should be my hype man more often. I appreciate it. The resume sounds better than what it is.
Yeah. No,
pressure comes with all that.
Yeah, it is all pressure, but like coming from a property development background, as well as Shannon and Carson, when we went through that house, it was an experience, right? Like I've been talking about it for the last 3 days. We walked through on Friday. We're recording this on Tuesday. And like, I've been thinking a lot about it because I've been building as well, but just the level of detail and the way that your human brain would work is a lot different than a lot of people's. And that's what I want to unpack a lot with this episode today. This came from, was it from you, Carson?
Yeah, I saw an article and thought, oh, this would be an interesting chat.
So obviously, for those of you guys living under a rock.
Is that the Service Paradise Demons?
Yeah.
That's it. That's the one.
Yeah, that was the one. It cost me $10,000 though.
Yeah. For those of you guys living under a rock and haven't heard about this house, it is based here in the hinterland on the Gold Coast in Talai. It's close to 9,000 square meters, over 2,200 square meters of livable space. And it has got everything. It's got 10 bedrooms, 11 bathrooms, 9-car garage. It's got cinema rooms, poker rooms with smoke extractor. It's got basically a bar / nightclub. It's got panic rooms, race car, a go-kart track. It's got Michael Jordan basketball court. It's got a cheese and charcuterie room for your cheese and your meats. It has everything. And we're going to get...
Don't forget the laundry.
Yeah. And the laundry where you can wash all your dirty clothes. But what we're going to do today is introduce a Brad and I guess learn a little bit more about his history, because everyone, would love to be an AFL player. So not only that, everyone would love to be an entrepreneur. And not only that, everyone would love to sell their business for $200 million. And on top of that, have the best house in Australia. So we have the guy that's going to take us through this So Brad, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself, where you came from, because you're not originally from Australia, you're from England, how you got here, and just a little bit of the journey so people can get a frame on who the hell this guy is. Because I'll be honest with you, I read an AFR article, and the way they made you suit up with that jacket, with the high collar, sitting down with that, Zoolander look, you look quite mysterious. Yeah, you're
Still.
yeah, but you're an actual lad. So tell us a little bit about your past.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to figure that out myself, Like, I think I've just been in 39 years of distraction trying to figure out actually who I am.
Yeah.
Naturally an obsessive compulsive personality type who is very driven. I can't ignore the successes that I've had, but I don't see those public successes as the ones that I really count. I consider my successes as being a good dad, a good husband, having a good family and building that good family bridge. But I grew up in England, in Birmingham. I moved over here when I was 15, which was quite a life change, quite difficult to do, different cultures, much safer, nicer culture here, but again, different. So found it hard fitting in, which enabled me to sort of focus on my sport. So I focused on rowing at the time. I was a good rower, and then I started playing AFL randomly at the age of 17. Don't need to bore you with that story. It's been covered plenty of times before, but for those that don't know, I came into the AFL as a project player. I was quick, I was tall, I could catch a ball, and in those days I was pretty good, better than 99% of other guys. It was a low bar. But 3 years at North Melbourne in the professional league. Couple of highlights. First game I was rising star, pretty good. Everyone was pretty surprised. I always kept telling them I'm actually not as bad as you think I am, and I used that game to sort of say, well, I could play. Second game, I was pretty convinced that my coach was out to sabotage me, trying to make me tag the best player in the league. I think he won the Brownlow that year, or just the year before maybe. So I tagged Nathan Buckley in that game, and that was an experience and a half. So he definitely took the biscuits, but I feel like I held my own. It reminds me of that Happy Gilmore skit where he fights the big guy at the start and he's lying in the hospital bed. It's like, gotten a few lucky punches, but I feel like I won the fight.
200 square meters running after one of the best midfielders. That's a pretty rough gig.
It was when I got it, I was like, okay, I love a challenge, so we'll go for it. But and then then I just couldn't break into the team. Moved to Adelaide, more opportunity there. Never had an injury in my life, and then got there and had consistent injuries one after one, which again was part of the building of the resilience and the setbacks, and the spending 36 weeks on the sidelines was pretty brutal. A lot of guys would come in and out of rehab, and a lot of AFL players have started to talk about how difficult it is to carry injuries and have extended periods of time on the sidelines. And you become very bitter. You become, a worse version of yourself, and you start having thoughts that you didn't think you would have, wanting the team to lose and wanting them, because it makes you look better if the team's not winning if you're not in it.
Yeah.
But look, I played a handful of good games for Adelaide, and in a lot of respects, the injuries were part of the reason I gave the game away, but also
Sorry, didn't see you there. While you're here, actually, we've got a new coaching cohort that just opened up for the Unemployable Property Coaching Program, that you get taught on how to become a property developer. One-on-one coaching, bi-monthly coaching, and also events where we get a full coach bus with all the students and go to 6-7 different development sites. When I say development sites, from 1 lot to 10 lots to 50 lots. So you get to see exactly why we buy it, how we fund it, and also how you can do it yourself. The next day, we had an amazing event at the QT Hotel here on the Gold Coast, where we had all of our consultants come in and teach everybody on what they're looking for with sites, what are the different trends, and how you can become a property developer yourself. Now you see me on the video, but who you're gonna be getting coached by is Shannon and Carson. Who's Shannon and Carson? 4 years ago, Carson was cleaning carpets. Shannon was a machine operator. Today, they're doing over $100 million worth of land deals. I know you're listening, and I know you want to take action. And if that's you, click on the link below or go to www.unemployableproperty.com.au and register your interest, and one of our team will reach out to you, and we'll see you on the next bus. Now get out of here.
I'd peaked pretty early, and I'd done some things that people said I couldn't do. And for me, not that I didn't love the game, but the pressure of being a perfectionist and the fear of failure was just more pressure than I was willing to keep carrying week on week. And, I had a business idea and I thought, now is probably the time to jump. The body's starting to diminish and it's hard to come back from 2 years out.
Yeah.
Especially with a body like mine. And so I utilized the club as a resource to try and learn from, all the business people around the club who knew a lot more than me about everything. So I started with the CEO and then I went out to the board and extended my wings from there and basically just asked a whole bunch of questions around, all the things I didn't know. So I had an idea and it's like, okay, what do I need to know next? Finance, legal, how to set up a company, what type of people you need, So it was basically the Rolodex of how to start a business through 15 to 20 conversations with incredibly clever people that were generous with their time.
Yeah, I love that because anyone that knows me is like, I'm a man of networking. I love networking. I love, asking questions to people that know a lot more than me in specific topics. And that's a perfect example, right? Going from athlete to obviously entrepreneur and using that network of going, I've now, my football career obviously ended prematurely due to injury. What do I do now? Because one thing that I read, because I love sport and I've loved sport all my life. And one thing that I read a lot is a lot of athletes, when they're done sport, they get lost. They don't know what they want to do because all of a sudden their identities change. They're known as this professional sports player, whether you're a man or a woman. And then all of a sudden it's like, nobody knows who you are anymore. You used to be this person put on a pedestal, and then there's always someone coming up from behind you, taking those reins away. But you obviously use that to your advantage.
Yeah, I think it was more luck than judgment. But in reflection, the biggest analogy I can draw from business to football would be the closure chapter. So, I think I would take purpose over money any day. And I think what you're referring to there is when a lot of players walk out their club rooms for the very last time on their own terms or not on their own terms. The fact that you can never go back is a very, very weird situation. It's like kind of, guys that come back from, I don't want to compare the army to football, but it is a bit like that in the sense that you're a group and then one day you're just not, and then you're not welcome back.
Yep.
In a lot of clubs, you're really not welcome back. But the biggest analogy I can draw is when I sold my business and the next day, the bank account looked slightly better, but I felt a huge degree of emptiness, like my purpose had gone, like whilst riding the mountain and going uphill for a long period of time felt like the worst thing in the world. When you get to the mountaintop, there's not even a reflection where you go, that tastes good. You wake up the next day and you're like, okay, what now? And a lot of people don't probably understand that kind of, peak and trough.
A friend of mine told me recently, we were in Dubai for a trip, and he's a very successful businessman, and he was sitting down with a mentor of his, and the guy was like, you know what? It's not about the journey. It's not about the destination. It's about the man or the woman that you become throughout the journey. And for me, and it's the same thing, right? Like I look at our businesses that we're involved in. At some point, hopefully, we'll be in a position like yourself in the future. And I think about that, and it excites me. But at the same time, it scares the shit out of me because it's like, what next? There's only so many days you can go golfing. There's so many days you can go on a boat by yourself, or probably even yourself. You've got the best house in Australia, yet probably sometimes it gets quite lonely. I can only assume. Obviously, you have the family, but then like mates, like usually everyone else is still on that journey. They haven't checked out and got that big check yet. So it's not like everyone can just be like, hey, let's go, and come over and play basketball and hang out and let's play, on the go-karts or whatever. Like it's a little bit different. Do you feel that sometimes?
Yeah, like the founder journey, like proper founder journey. Like there are professional CEOs that end up in startups, and there are founders that start businesses and work all the way through. And again, I don't want to liken it to combat because I've never fought in combat, but like people I always thought once you get to the end, because you damage your brain and your body so much trying to reach the top or reach an exit. And in my case, it was 12 years of, putting your foot to the red line. That's a long time to punish your body and brain, particularly when you've reached burnout, probably year 5, and then you're just medicating to try and get through the rest of it. Is that I always thought, once I get to the end, I can pay for recovery. And the harsh reality is that I've been out of the business nearly 5 years now, and I'm in worse shape now than I was when I sold it. So I think that some of the myths around, wealth is that it can, like, for example, if your arms got blown off in combat, do they grow back when you come back from overseas? Or, I think it's first world problems, right? But there's like a lot of post-traumatic stress involved in business. And even now when I consult, I have to be careful who I consult to and what industries I consult with, because of, it brings back memories of it's a live or die in the startup world. Like it's kill or be killed. I think I've said this many times before, but I think when people get involved in that founder mentality, is it's so brutal, because you have to toe the line between someone who runs a company and has to put on a smile and put on a brave face every day, who knows that the shit could hit the fan at any minute, or it normally is. There's always a fire burning. It's just how big and how many. Always. And then you have to pretend like everything's good for your staff, because otherwise, if they start to get a feel for things aren't going well, then they'll be tidying up their resumes on behind their desk.
Well, I mean, in businesses, you never have the right amount of staff. You either have not enough, or you have too many. You're always chasing that next thing. And like you said, there's always fires. Like us in entrepreneurship, there's never a day that you can just fully check out. There's always a WhatsApp message, there's always a Slack, there's always an email, there's always a phone call, because there's always fires there. Whereas, I've got friends that, are well-to-do and they've got jobs and they're corporate or trades or whatever it is. And when they're on their 2-week holiday, they're on their 2-week, they're not thinking about anything else. And throughout like my business career, I've never had that, right? Like it is always an ongoing thing of what do I got to do? Who do I got to talk to? What fires are happening? And that's why I said on another podcast this morning, I'm like, I can't wait to that, time between the 26th of December and January 1st, when you actually don't get many calls or emails. And it's like no one knows what day it is, and everyone's in that same mindset, because it's just that's the only time that I can really just check out a little bit. And it is so true. People don't understand the punishment that it takes on you physically, mentally, on your family. Like it's you against you. Like when you're laying your head on that pillow, looking at, well, in your case, the stars. When we'll get to that soon. It's you and your thoughts, and sometimes that's the hardest part, because we're so hard on ourselves, because we are such high achievers and we're comparing ourselves to others. Did you find yourself in that same headspace?
Yeah, I couldn't go on holiday, at least not to what you're describing in terms of switching off. In fact, I did once, and I had a bad episode of which I discussed with my psych, because I got quite worried. I ended up like having a partial collapse at a gelato store, and I freaked out. I'm like, oh, maybe it's my heart, maybe it's something more sinister. And he goes, no, it was your body had finally relaxed, and it had enough, basically put you into a micro sleep, because it was so tired and worn out of being anxious and being in that fight or flight zone. So I said, well, what's more worrying, this being something more sinister or the micro sleeps? Because they could happen at any time, right? It's like middle of the driving.
Yeah.
So that was quite scary, but it's when you live a high octane life, you can't, be on the 9,000 RPM line and then just go to zero.
No.
And so, I think you have to be mindful of that you can't just switch the body off.
And this is why I like these discussions, because everyone will see the Brad Moran on the front of the AFR and, in his McLaren, in front of the house that, who knows what it's, worth and what it's going to sell for. And that's what they look at, right? The success, the guy, the $200 million, the wife, the kid, the cars, everything. But they don't understand the struggle. I mean, some do, most don't. The struggles to actually get there. And most people won't do it, right? Because what's easy to do is easier not to do, you know? And this isn't easy, what you've done. Like, well, just AFL, the pressure, the anxiety, you know, like I was reading an article talking about like the pressure and anxiety that you dealt with, right? Like being a professional player. I can just imagine what that, I mean, I played competitive ice hockey and baseball all my life, you know, until my late teens. And I felt that, and that was not professional. So I could just imagine in that professional, I guess, area of your life, because there's always someone else wanting to take your spot at all times. And it's similar, I guess, in the business world as well, right? Like you're competing, right? You're competing in sport just like you're competing in business. So someone's always trying to obviously get your market share at the same time and take away what your exit's going to be.
Yeah, I think sport was significantly easier. Like you could see your opponents, like you could see first of all, your first opponents were your teammates, because you had to get past them to even get in the team.
Yep.
And they were more often than not your biggest opponents, which also led to a toxic environment. But I could work out mechanically how to get better and how to beat them. In business, it became like, I know AFL is a 360-degree game, but like let's just assume it's linear for now. Like you and your opponent, you can see them, you can analyze them. You didn't know yourself, you analyze yourself. You get better, you train harder. In business, it was 100 million different more variables that came at you, and the pressure that I felt in AFL was reasonable, like, you know, because a lot of that sort of self pressure, you know, a bit of media pressure, but you know, the media don't write nice things about anybody, except for when they want to put you up to eventually chop you down.
Yeah, bad news sells,
Yeah,
right? Negativity sells.
So with business, I think the biggest thing is the risk that you take day in, day out. Like if you don't take risk, business fails. If you take too many risks, the business fails. So that balance of risk and trying to describe to someone how it feels. What I do is I always try and say, okay, when was the last time you felt anxious? Like that gut-wrenching anxiety that you felt, like maybe you heard some bad news or maybe you did something you shouldn't have done. Like, okay, so cultivate that feeling and now turn it on 24/7 for 12 years. And then try and make functional decisions whilst being in that state. And then try and make, you know, empathetic decisions or strategic decisions, and then add a little bit more fuel on the fire every time, you know, you run out of cash or you lose a customer or someone says you're shit or some staff member hates you or and so that's probably the only way that I can help to visualize maybe what founders go through. But again, a lot of people just say, you know, it's first world problems, right? I mean, like, I'm be lucky they got a job, but you know, I love the name, the Unemployable podcast, because in between startups, when I got fired from my first startup, I was unemployable. You know, I was like the guy who was a ex-footballer and CEO of a small business. So I didn't fit any corporate bill. And that was actually the motivation to start my second business, was more out of the fact that I couldn't get a job.
You mentioned something off camera when I was going through, you know, what's on topic, what's off topic. And you mentioned about your first startup called No Q. And I asked, so was that a failure? And you said, no, it's still going, but I was a failure. What do you mean by that? What happened?
I guess, you know, my first startup, you're learning the ropes. So you're making all the mistakes and you're making them quickly. I always say my greatest achievement was lasting 6 years, because I was a minority shareholder from day one. So a lot of founders tend to hold on to 50.1% for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
I was at 25 from the minute go, because I was a footballer with no credibility, and the investors and board put money into me. So anyway, so I managed to get the business going, but I wasn't really solving a problem. I had a solution that I wanted to use as a consumer, but then I looked at myself and said, well, I'm not the average consumer, so this probably not going to work for everyone. So we pivoted into, you know, a different sector, and then we pivoted again, and we pivoted again, and we pivoted again. And then after so many pivots, your investors and board kind of get tired of you pivoting. And, you know, I don't like to think I was always like bullish and wanted to be right, but I was always passionate about what I believed in, which largely came off as potential arrogance or, you know, this guy said one thing a year ago, now he's saying something different. And like, whilst this strategy that I was proposing was correct, you've only got so many pivots until you get shot, right? And so that's probably the lesson that I learned, was it's sometimes better to not be right in the room and, you know, just cop whatever's coming your way than trying to defend your position always. And I guess my defending my position came from a position of me not wanting to be fired or me not wanting to get moved out of the seat of CEO and stuff. And yeah, I learned a lot in that business about not only how business runs, but how to manage people, how to manage down, how to manage up. You know, there's a big difference. How to keep shareholders happy, how to keep a board happy, how not to set up things, how not to structure a company at the start, you know, how to retain control. So I think whilst the business was set up for success when I left, I probably wasn't the right person to lead it at that point, given the exhaustion of pretty much everyone who was involved at that point. And look, I was the easy scapegoat and should have been. And, you know, I have to fall on my sword and say that I made tons of mistakes and, you know, one too many left me beheaded. And
do you feel like that experience kind of gave you the ammo for CitrusAd?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Like 6 years of mistakes enabled me to build a business that was in 37 countries within 3 years with a product that went to market in 9 months. You know, we didn't really even change that product after 9 months either. So we built it with 6 engineers and we traveled the world selling it with our backpacks on. And
yeah,
we knew what to do.
I want to unpack that story a little bit, and then we'll roll into the speaking about this the estate is what it's called. So you went from NoQ, which was kind of like a Uber, I guess, before its time, give or take.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
And then you went straight into CitrusAd. So what's the timeline of CitrusAd? When did you actually start CitrusAd?
March 2017.
March 2017.
So I got fired on September 1st, 2016.
Yep.
8:31 a.m.
and is this when you're?
That's not bad to you.
I love that. Is this when we were talking off camera at the house? For those,
You know why I know that? Well, you know why I've kept it in my mind is that I don't know if it's irony, I don't know if it's fate or whatever it's meant to be, but the guys that pushed me out were latecomers into the business. They weren't early believers in the company. There were a couple of American guys, and look, I hold no ill feeling about anyone. Like, they did the right thing that they thought at the right time. But what was funny was that we sold the business on September 1, exactly 5 years later. Citrus sold. And on September 1, a smile was brought to my face because those two guys got fired on that day as well. So it was, whether it was serendipitous or,
oh wow,
but it was just weird, you know. That's how I keep the dates. Yeah.
Wow.
So
Kind of a microphone drop moment, eh?
it was. It wasn't like a, hey, yeah, I told you so. It was
Yeah.
weird how it all came through on one day. September 1, right? So mark that in your diaries.
How good, eh?
But exactly like 5 years apart.
So
Yeah.
March 2017, you come up with a bright idea. It was you and a partner. You had a partner in that business, right? Come up with the idea for CitrusAd. What was or is CitrusAd?
Yeah, so
In layman's terms.
let's go back a year.
Yep.
Let's go back 2 years. So NoQ was a pre-order and pay e-commerce platform that was originally built on the iPhone 3GS. So it was pretty early. And then we kind of migrated back to web. So we went back to like responsive websites. And then we found that pizza shops and coffee shops weren't really going to get us to the stratosphere. And so we shifted into grocery. And so then we changed our business model completely because we realized we're actually in a data business. You know, the point of sale, I won't bore you with the details, but the iceberg was the website, and, you know, the kind of, the rest of it was,
Can't see.
yeah, the rest of it you can't see. It was all about how do you pick and pack orders? How do you make a logistics work? How do you make the food actually get to someone's house and the delivery component? So then we changed our business completely. And that was a whole new different set of problems to solve. But what we realized is that was that grocery for the large part was offset by advertising dollars. And then most of those would come from a catalog or in-store. And then when we took them online, they would lose lots of money going online. Every order would cost them $20 to $25 just in pure cost. It still happens today. Every single retailer that's online is losing money, lots of it. And so, when we came up with Citrus, we knew that was a problem. We knew the problem was around search engines and shelf space. And so we decided to kind of build the Google AdWords of private retail, if you like. So you go to woolies.com or coles.com and you type in shampoo or chocolate, and the first row will generate, on average, about 80% of the sales. And we basically provided a system that allowed brands like Procter & Gamble or Palmolive to bid for the top row. And then their
on the Coles site.
So then their products will come up in the front row and listed as sponsored. And if you're listening to the podcast now, get your phone out, go to Coles, type in chocolate, you'll see a little colorful banner ad, and then you'll see a whole bunch of products that say sponsored content.
And that's Citrus. That's running that. So how does that work in regards to, without getting into the nitty gritty? So who's paying you? Is it
the retailer? Yeah. So
Coles.
We were a SaaS company. Yeah. That was one thing that we learned very early on about business and business models. You can go out to the market with a great product, but if it's not priced correctly, you can lose clients instantly. And so we originally went out with a rev share model to say, well, any dollars that we bring to you, we'll take a percentage of. But we realized actually that was taking money off the sales team, who are effectively the mafia of the retail world. And so then we said, well, how do we counteract this? And we got some advice from someone from one of these big retailers that said, if you think that it's going to cost $1 million a year to run this platform, just charge it as a tech fee and alleviate all of the sales function. And that way you don't become an irritation.
Yeah.
And then, you kind of get what you want, we get what we want, we capitalize the cost. Everyone wins. And so that was some of the best advice we ever got. But effectively what we did was we just took what was happening in store in the middle shelf and we took it online. And most people's search engines back in 2017, 2018 were still pretty rudimentary. They weren't very good. And brands had no way of promoting their product to the top of the page. And so in our system that we built, Coke was appearing on page 3 just because it was alphabetical. We didn't have a better way to do it back then. Obviously, they're more sophisticated now, but we tried to build a system that would take into account bid prices and popularity. So we'd use, an algorithm to work out what was the best, most effective ads to show, because the user experience had to be good. Again, we'll talk about user experience a lot, about the estate and about how that came into it. So it was about trying to cater for 3 parties. What's good for the retailer, because you imagine trying to interfere with Woolworth's website. No chance. It's like mafia style. You're not touching our site. And then you've got the brands. We want, a pound of flesh and then more, and then we don't pay for it either. And then you got the consumer. So when the consumer goes to the site, they can't have an interrupted experience. And so we had to kind of take all 3 of these user experiences and make them work. And that was probably the magic of what we built at Citrus. Was we gave the retailer all of the controls they could ever want. And I won't bore you with the technical details of how we did that. And then we gave the brands what they wanted, which was ultimately visibility. So there's an old saying in advertising, I'll give you $1 million, 50% of it I know worked, 50% I don't know worked. I just don't know which 50% worked. So we gave them effectively, real-time dashboards, real-time ability to select, okay, I want to promote these 3 products against these 3 search terms. I'm prepared to pay this much. You would have seen this in Google and
we are pretty straightforward. That's what I understand.
So, if you've ever been on Amazon, that's their biggest revenue driver,
right?
Apart from AWS. So we basically built what they did, but for every other retailer in the world.
And then 5 years later, you got the $200 million check, give or take.
3.9, but
3.9.
I write a book because I love cars. It's like 0 to 200 and 3.9.
I love that.
It's just, but it wasn't easy though. It was how much time you got to talk about Citrus, because people think that it's a linear, we went from 0 to 200 in 4 years and that was real easy. based on what we knew. But if I told you that 2 years in, my CTO and co-founder left, we were out of cash like twice, had half the staff leave in 2019 just due to toxicity spreading around the office. So when you're a CEO, you're trying to sell. So you're trying to get out there, trying to accumulate new clients. When you're not in the office every day, bad things can happen, and then bad things can fester. And if you're not there to put the fires out and you get rid of the toxic people, you come back to a very, very frosty Christmas party, So I felt like there was a lot of snow and ice at my Christmas party one year. And it probably took me 6 or 7 months to get everyone back on track. And, people don't often hear about those stories. They just see the kind of end number and go, geez.
The overnight. They see
got overnight. Lucky you're at. The footballer that got lucky. But all of the, probably only you need to go back a year. So March 2020, COVID hit. We owed a bank $1.5 million. We probably had like 3 or 4 good clients, but they weren't like generating killer revenue. Got knocked back by every VC in the country because we were B2B. We weren't sexy like B2C is. Like they were happy to piss up 100 million down the tubes investing in Milk Run, that was never going to work ever. But they wouldn't put 4 million into a business where they could see a 6-time return. And I said to them, I heard you right. You said you could see a 6-time return. Yep. And you're not going to invest. Nope. So why? He goes, well, our mandate is 10 times. So unless you can produce 10 times, we're not going to invest. And I'm like, well, you have your rules, I guess, you got your criteria, but I thought how ridiculous that was. Anyway, so MA Financial come in and they invest, and it wasn't easy. Like at that point in time, that deserves its own podcast because of the cloak and dagger shit that we had to go through in order to get that money. It was like we were relying on one big client to sign that client, like a big extension worth multi-millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Then we had that particular client wanted to invest and didn't want the other guys to invest. And it became this, okay, well, if we take their money, we become almost unacquirable by every other retailer in the world. If we take their money, they may not be a client of ours, and then we might not get that money anymore because they won't be a client. And so I was like, just a whole, oh man, what am I going to do here? So how am I going to get myself out of this one? And that was like, right at the last minute, a week before, like a term should have been signed, a week before money was about to drop into the account, and I was sort of stuck with this conundrum now of what do I do? And, that's where you got to kind of take a risk or just be prepared to back yourself. And it's those moments that actually define you. And we took the money and the deal still got done. And we went and acquired like a smaller ad tech business in the US at the time. And then, over the next 12 months, we signed about 35 retailers, and we got acquired within 12 months of that one moment.
How did it feel when the payment came through, whatever your portion was, and it hit the bank, documents are signed? Bring us back to the headspace. Where were you at? What were you doing? How did you feel?
Yeah, I remember exactly where I was. I remember being on the phone to a mate of mine, John Paul Drake. He was excited because he was still clicking the refresh button on his bank. His Macquarie bank hadn't quite hit yet.
I love it. I love it.
It's like, he's like, are you sure it's coming? I'm like, yeah.
Is this a partner or?
He's an investor.
Investor, yeah.
No, wait, I got double for some reason.
I know. What was your account? What was yours meant to be? Oh, yeah, no, that seems to be in my account right now. But my reaction was pretty solemn, like, if I'm being honest. The reason being is that I did a lot of it for validation and never got it. My investors were pissed at me for selling. They tried to stop it. They tried to get rid of me as CEO at the last minute and bring someone else in because they thought that the market cap could be bigger. But they couldn't see the headwinds that I could see. They couldn't see the supply chain issues that everyone seems to forgot about now. It was the right time because at the end of the day, when founders leave, the businesses very rarely survive.
I agree. Maybe you could buy it back on cents in the dollar like most of them.
Yeah. I don't think I'd ever do it again. But, and so for me, like, it was weird seeing money in the bank, I guess, but
especially as a founder, because you're literally just grabbing straws for years,
you're
right?
just
like
broke.
you're just broke. You're on a shitty wage, and you have this equity piece, and you're sitting on a table that is this fugazi of a paper wealth that actually never is anything until it actually.
But you know what though? Right? Like, what happens is imposter syndrome and guilt start to seep in. So you get about. I never got any joy out of it, and I know people will hear this and go, you ungrateful prick. But what I took joy out of though was when he finally called me back like 5 hours later, and he got his wife to FaceTime me as he hit the button.
Is this the JP guy? Yep.
And he just said some expletives, and he was going nuts and crazy, but because it changed his life, right? He's already a wealthy guy, but when you live under like when you live in a family where your dad built the empire, like Drake supermarkets, like John Paul's, and like he's such a great guy, but he's always lived in his dad's shadow.
Yeah.
And that's not his fault, but it's just the way that life, the cards that dealt him that. And this was his investment.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden I'd actually changed someone's life, and that made me happy.
Yeah.
So I was happy for him. I was happy for some of the guys that had really made an impact on their lives. But yeah, for me, I was still dealing with my own demons. My immediate reaction was, oh shit, I've taken money off this big company. I hope they got a good deal, and then that's what forced me to stick around, because I negotiated a really good deal where.
Because you're still on the board, right? Like,
no, I was
consultant or something.
I was the CEO for another couple of years.
Yeah.
But I signed a deal where I could have walked away that minute, and the business could have collapsed that minute. But that was done. I'd worked well to take advice from all the good people around me to say, try and make your earnouts as little as possible, because you'll never get them. And we got most of them. I was pretty happy with my 97.1%.
Yeah.
Not that I keep track of that and remind my shareholders. But no, my all of a sudden my validation went from trying to prove to my shareholders that I could do it to then trying to prove to the new company, and trying to seek validation from them, like making sure they were okay. Was the acquisition a good one? And it just became a perpetual fucking nightmare. Like really, and so the money didn't mean anything. Like it was great, like, and it paid for stuff, took a bit of pressure off. I could help family members out. That was nice. That was great. Didn't have to worry about, paying bills again, that sort of stuff. But in terms of me and myself, like I think when you work that hard for that long, you shatter a lot of yourself, and you kind of, the artistic analogy might be that, the glass is better when it's rebuilt and glued together. Like you can see all the imperfections, but it still works. So I think that's kind of the journey that happens with these types of life-changing events.
When you started the company, was the plan always to get that big exit after you got moved out of that other company? And like, was it something that you actually chased and pursued, or did they come to you once you got all those other, groups that came on board in that 12 months after that big decision?
Yeah, no, it was the plan. Yeah. And I think part of the plan was that, again, talk about having pretty stiff investors. If you ever invested in a business, nothing ever goes to plan, right? Like not even close to plan. We were 6 months out with our numbers, 6 months. And we got to a good number at the end. But no, like if you're in this day and age, and the reason I started Rocket Ship, we didn't do anything really with the venture side because I just got so busy afterwards with the house and the child. Didn't invest in anything. But the reason I called it Rocket Ship is because I truly believe now, if you're going to start a startup, if you're not planning an exit within 4 years, you're dead. And the main reason is because anyone can spin up software quickly now. Like we're talking days, weeks, months for a really good system. And then it can, to raise money is not that difficult either. If you know
a lot of money around, yeah.
And so if you're not out there in market with clients by the first year and growing rapidly by the second and third and fourth year, someone else, if you've got a real problem that you're solving, 10 other people are already doing it and probably well-funded better than you are. And so you've got a very limited amount of time to do it. And so when we went into Citrus, I definitely had an exit plan. And when you take money off other people, they want to know they're going to get a return. All right. And so
Big responsibility, right?
huge. And we didn't take money off a firm. It wasn't like, oh, some faceless corporate. It was 19 individual guys. Some of them were concreters that threatened to bury me if they didn't get their returns. You know, all joking.
Yeah.
You know, a couple of Irish guys. It's like, you know, if this fucks up, mate, you know, should be in Drummoyne somewhere in a fucking burial ground. I'm like, he meant that.
I said it with a smile, but
And there was some heavies on the investment cap table. So not that I was scared of them, but like I had enough drive. I was scared of myself. I was scared of looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
So to your point, we had a plan, and a lot of startups fail because they don't have a plan to exit, and they just think it's being capitalistic to go in there thinking we're just going to make money. It's like, no, it's not about that. It's about you have a window. We had a window, and we took the window. We had probably had a 12-month window. We could have sold 6 months earlier. We could have sold 6 months later. But you don't have a crystal ball, right? You know, there's a company that offered publicists 4 times what they paid for us 6 months after, right? So people go, oh, you know, you're an idiot for taking what you did, but you don't know that. Like, you don't know where you're going to be. You don't know where the business could have been. The business could have been, we could have lost 3 clients, and then the business might have been unsellable. So, you know, I think you do, like, the decision you make at the time is often the right one. But absolutely, we went in there to sell.
You've mentioned validation a few times. Now, you sold the business. When did you sell? What year and what month?
2021.
2020.
September 1st.
Oh yeah, September 1st, 2021. You cash out, and what was next? When did you buy the estate?
Before I received the money.
Before you received the money. So
This is another story.
So the validation, because the reason why
I didn't have the money to pay for it.
the reason why I'm bringing up validation is, well, I love it.
No, seriously, I was calling the M&A team because they weren't fussed about when the money was going to drop, because they're like, because the money had to go from France to China, then to Hong Kong, then to Australia, and then into our bank accounts. And so the investors didn't care. They're like, well, we're going to get our money.
What do you mean? It didn't just come from CBA to Westpac?
No, it came from France, right? So money has to move around, and no one else seemed phased. But I'd gone to this house, and I'm like, the money's going to hit September 1, so that's the day that settlement will be. And
Plenty of buffer.
mate, I had to, because I'm like, you know what, because there was already a contract on it. So I'm like, if I'm going to steal this, I got to come in with aggressive terms. So I was like, 7 days, cash, blah, 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 done. I'll be sweet. Don't worry about it. And then I'm thinking, there's emails going back and forth going, we might be delayed a day because of this and this and this. And I'm thinking, my heart's just like sunk. And of course, I just think of worst case scenario. I could get sued. I could have to pay up the deposit and just lose everything. And then, anyway, the money came through at like 5 a.m. And then, we managed to settle on time. But even that was an ordeal. I was like, what is fucking wrong with me? Like, why can't I just do anything normally?
It's all the same day the mate's coming in.
I love it. Did you?
Not intentionally, by the way. It just happened. That's why I was like, September 1's a pretty serendipitous kind of day. Anyway.
Was there, I want to start plugging into the house now, but you said the word validation a few times. Was there any point when you bought the house that it was for validation again, to do what you've done with this thing over the last few years?
No, fuck no. It was just about, how do I protect the money I've just made, and how do I turn it into more capital?
Yeah.
Like, that was literally, I stopped. The funny thing is, when you come into money, I started worrying about money.
I know.
That's all I started worrying about, was now I've got something to lose.
Well, it's a problem. Like, I've talked to people that have exited before, people that have come into money. It is actually a problem to have, right? Because the key is like, rule number 1, don't lose your capital. Right? Don't talk about Fight Club, right? Right? Don't lose capital. Rule number 2, refer back to rule number 1, right? Because all of a sudden you have this chunk of cash down that is like, okay, you're not just going to sit it in a bank account, getting your 4%. It's like, okay, well, 1, how do I make more? And 2, how do I make sure I don't actually lose it? So
let's go back to when I bought it. Interest rates were 0. And that's also combine it with the fact that the only 3 pieces of advice that I got in that period of time were, there's plenty of people that have lost what you have and gone back to zero. Like, thanks for that. Great advice.
I'm going to sleep tonight.
That's all I really wanted to hear, right? It's like, and so the first thing I did was panic. It's like, I got to put my money to work.
Yep.
And I didn't buy, Tally straight away. Like there was other things that I'd bought investment wise, and I had a strategy, and I thought, well, I can't put the money in the bank. Debt facilities I didn't know much about debt facilities at that point. Because the one thing you don't know about money when you have money is how to make money.
Yeah.
Like I literally panicked and thought, well, if I'm not the CEO of a business, I really don't have any other skills. And so I kind of went back to the drawing board and thought, well, I'm so physically and mentally wrecked that I'm unemployable. I couldn't work again, or at least I thought I couldn't. And so I thought, well, how am I actually going to continue to make this wealth? Because I've been told that if I don't make at least 6% a year, I'm going to end up broke somehow in, I don't know, I think I worked it out. It's like 174 years.
Yeah.
But, if I lived that long, it was a possibility. But it still didn't stop me worrying about it. And, I think that, I looked at the house and I looked at what a great investment it was.
Yeah. I want to make sure, Sketch, you chime in here now with some of the footage, because I want to get stuck right into this property. And for those of you guys that are listening and have listened this long, make sure that you guys now, at some point, whether you're listening, on the train or in the car, on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, go to YouTube and actually watch from this point onwards, because you're going to see something that you probably most likely never see again. And in my opinion, and I talked to Carson and Shannon about this, probably the nicest house that we will ever see, unless we get a $200 million exit at some point, and maybe we'll build something even better.
I challenge you.
Honestly,
please
do.
So it's incredible. Like what'd you say, 2,200 square meters, and like every centimeter has been thought about.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah. So
I just want to go back to if you're still listening. So at this point, most of your listeners have fallen asleep, or
no. Just making sure that they don't. Make sure that
their eyes are closed.
That they haven't. No, because most of them listen.
Their eyes are closed because they're imagining.
Yeah, they're imagining. So instead of imagining, right, like go to YouTube.
Imagine the Batcave,
right?
Less black.
Yeah,
just slightly less black.
Yeah,
Iron Man's pad.
Let's put it this way. I want to say some of the what's in this property again. So again, for those of you guys that are listening, make sure you go to YouTube and view it. But it sits on close to 900 square meters, which is about 2.2 acres of land, right? Yeah, 9,000 square meters. That is carved into a side of a mountain.
Don't work in sales,
right? With a view of the Gold Coast.
There we go. Now we're back on track.
Over 2,200 square meters of living space, 10 bed, 11 bath, 9 car garage with turntable. This project took over 3 years, and I read that it was about 60 hours a week of your time, basically full-time, nonstop, from design to project management. And you did a lot of the project management and design work yourself, multiple trades. It literally has a fountain. Can I say the cost of the fountain? I won't say the cost of the fountain, but it's a ridiculous amount of money, right? That is embedded with 24 karat gold tiles, with a dragon tree that cannot be put on its side, which that was unbelievable. I didn't realize that about dragon trees. So I had to be, was it helicoptered in or craned in?
Almost had to get the helicopter in.
Yeah, basically, craned in.
Had a few trees on Tello Road to get it through.
Is it true that there's 75,000 cobblestones that have been laid by hand on that drive?
Individually, yeah. And that was the easy part, because I watched the tilers do it. The hard part was the 30 laborers I had to have sit at the bottom of the street and actually unpack it off the packaging, because it comes in crates, and the crates have 100 cobbles on them each, and they're like, when you like, the best thing for people who don't know much about construction, like you used to have those Coke cans and the plastic on top that would hold them together. But you have that and glue. And the tilers, not special snowflakes, but they're like, we're not touching the glue. We want them sanded back. So I had to sand back and unstrip 75,000 individual cobbles because it's on a curve, right?
Yeah.
And so you can't lay them straight.
Like for those of you guys having a look right now at this this feature, literally it took over almost 400 days to build. 82 square meters of fountain. Like, it is just ridiculous. 140,000 mosaic tiles, 1,400 bars of N12 steel. Like, just that part. Cinema room, poker room, golf driving range, go-kart track, basketball court, racing car simulator. This thing literally is every, I think, man's dream, because when I walked in there, it's got everything. But probably, everyone's dream house. Like, no expense has been spared on this thing. It's hard to explain in a video. It's hard to explain on a podcast without physically being there. But obviously not anyone can go there. There's no open houses. We're recording this on November 11th, and the auction is actually November 28th, if I'm not wrong, with Michael Kalashi and Jamie Harrison. So I guess where I want to start is, what made you embark on a project like this? Other than protecting the money. Go ahead.
You mentioned that it was to, you wanted to keep the money and put it somewhere good. So was it a mindset of, hey, this is just I look at that and go, okay, replacement cost, you can see, okay, I'm buying it for a good price, the land and obviously all the works that were already done to the site, so you got a good bones to deal with. But then, like, was it a reno flip, or was it like, I just want to live there and I just know I've got a good deal and we'll play rent? Like, was it always going to be what it turned out to be, like this just labor of love over the next few years to try and turn it into this masterpiece? Like, did you literally think through, obviously you're pretty strategic in business sense, like, I start here and my exit's here. Like, did you think, okay, I'm buying it for X, I want to spend Y to land out here, and I think I can get this kind of a number? Or was it just happened? What was the...
Well, like, we bought it well, and that was the justification for spending more than I wanted to spend on a home at that particular time. So that's point number one. I knew I'd renovate at some point. I didn't know when. We lived there for a good 2 years, sort of enjoying the home, understanding, kind of how it worked, how it lived, how it breathed. It probably took me 6 months to understand how the house worked. And I like to think I'm fairly tech savvy. But as you get up every morning and walk to the coffee machine, you start to pick up things that you would have changed, or, things that you'd like to see better. Or, so you start to accumulate a number of obsessive compulsive ideas. And we started to do some micro renovations when I lived there, because when we sold the business, I was kind of not bored, but I didn't have a whole lot to do, so I wanted to give myself something to do. And I had no lawn, so, nothing to mow there. My co-founder, he sold and he bought a big lawn, so he's there, happy as a pig and shit. I said, what are you doing? He said, I'm off to Port Elliot. What are you doing there? He's going to mow the lawns, maybe clean the pool, and then go to the pub. I'm like, okay. So I think it's all of the above and none of the above. I think that when we got to a point where we realized, we wanted to go traveling when the business sold, I wanted to do a couple of years away in Europe. Like, I wanted to give my kids that opportunity that not many people get to do. Some of the things that money does allow you to have is the freedom to sort of go and experience the world. And after COVID, everyone was so miserable.
Yeah.
Who got short memories? Like, the world was doom and gloom. And I'm like, you know what? I think there's a better life out there, and it's not here. And that was the main reason for trying to get out of Australia and go and travel. But then we fell pregnant, and I thought it's probably not a good time to go travel the world with an infant. And that's when we brought forward kind of the renovation. And, I got a couple of different opinions on it. You could do this and flip it. You could do this and, and I thought there's very few times in life where you have like the canvas to build something that is truly remarkable. And I guess for me, if I was working off a block of land, I probably would have built something sensible. But because I was working with an already existing structure that was quite magnificent as it was not to the level it is now, but it was already, Graham Ingalls was a great developer back in the day. And that was his dream home, and he built it into the side of the mountain and did a lot of the hard work in terms of excavation and kind of, you know, the footings and the initial structure. But I looked at it and I thought, it's not really going to sit in the mid-market. It has to be ultra luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, did I know how much it was going to cost? No. Did I know how long it was going to take? No. Did I know who was going to do it? No. But I knew what I wanted. I knew that I wanted something special. And I knew that what I was good at doing was problem solving. I was good at hustling. I was good at calling, getting on the phones. There's nothing I couldn't learn. And so I started where I always start, in a spreadsheet. Okay, list all the rooms of the house. Let's start there, right? We ended up with like 72 different sections in my spreadsheet. The P&L ended up being about like 2,500 lines long by the time you went into each room, demolition, you know.
Did you have the $300 cigar on there? And then that's in the office.
I did not know. By the time I bought the cigars, I was at the point where I'm not adding any more money to the spreadsheet because it makes me depressed.
That was the I don't give a fuck stage anymore. It was just like, I'm balls deep. That's all I'm in.
It was like, give my credit card to my project manager and be like, just don't hurt me too much. All right.
You get into that last 10% and like, it's just sort of been finished.
Oh, honestly.
It'll be finished no matter what.
The last 10% is the bit that counts, and there's a bit that kills you too.
That's where I'm at a build right now. And that's where this first world problems. And this one I was like, oh, I'm doing a nice build. And then I went to your place and humbled me very quickly. But I'm in that last 10% stage. It's like, you think it's, and then there's this thing, and then there's that thing, and then there's this thing that you don't even, so many things you don't even think about, right? That
like rugs and artwork.
Man.
There goes another $250,000.
Yeah.
So like, it's not about the price though. Like for me, every room, you know, when I went through the design process, every room had to have an X factor. You know, what's the point just building any room? Like, I mean, obviously some bedrooms are like pretty standard. It's a bed, it's a wardrobe. But then we would try and focus on the finishes, the materials. So we'd try and pick a really nice veneer, or we'd try and pick a really nice brass handle, or like everything was kind of thought about in terms of finishes and fixtures. And then, you know, we spent a lot of time learning about stone, you know, became an expert in stone, where it came from, what quarry. I would always investigate, like, what makes this stone special? Why is it, like, what's the story behind it? And then when I got to the point where I thought that I may not keep the home, I then wanted to create a series of experiences and stories, you know, because I thought of the house more as like a piece of art rather than a property with walls and bedrooms. And so, you know, we tried to utilize every square inch of the property and reallocate it, or, you know, reuse it in some way, shape or form, or make it better or enhance it. But we also thought about, you know, if you're sitting here, what would you be talking about? And so whether it's the dining room with the, you know, your wine collection on display, you know, a lot of people like to talk about the collection of wine. I'm not a huge wine drinker, but I know people do like to talk about that. You know, the kitchen was repositioned so that it looked over the view, you know. So the whole house is actually built on a giant curve. And you can imagine when the cabinet makers came in to try and fit that out, they're like, well, everything's curved. It's going to be, you know, twice.
A lot of curve tack.
Yeah.
There's a lot of curve tacks.
So even the bar's curved. The custom-made couch that sits on the bar wall is curved. So yeah, it was every individual area was kind of listed, planned, thought through, designed, and then constructed. And then, you know, lots of different people had to work on lots of different areas for the main reason that, one, because the house was so big, they would get fatigued and they'd only be able to commit to like 3 or 4 months at a time. Certain people could only work with certain materials. So, you know, mosaic tilers will only work with mosaics. They won't work with, you know, big slabs of marble.
And we got to remember, guys, like building a luxury house, right, on the Gold Coast. And when I say a luxury house on the Gold Coast, you know, anywhere from about, 600 square meter to 1,000 square meter house on the water and Broad Beach Waters on Monaco Street or whatever, you know, you're talking probably a 12 to 18 month build, right? And Brad took 3 years. Mm-hmm. Now, this thing was already built, right? Like you said, there was structure there, right? The footings were done, the excavation was done. So this was all mainly add-on and cosmetic work that took 3 years. So you can imagine the amount of detail. And for anyone that's watching, as you're watching this B-roll and going through room by room. I really want to go to and speak about some rooms specifically. Like there's, I mean, being a gentleman, I love that. And there's a poker table right there, which I'm going to set up a poker night really soon, and I'll make sure that you're on the invite. But you can't smoke cigars in here because there's no smoking extraction.
I'm out then.
So there's a hidden door, right? And there's all this custom battens, and then all of a sudden you press this button and this door opens and it goes into a gentleman's poker room. But not only is it a poker room, right? You can smoke. It's basically a cigar lounge at the same time because you can smoke cigars in there, because Brad has thought of putting a smoke extraction machine so everybody doesn't suffocate in their own smoke. Like, this is the level of thought that has gone through this property. You then walk through and you go into I call it a bar / almost nightclub feel area. And then there's this automatic door, double door, again, hidden door that opens up into a multi-level cinema room with popcorn machine, with custom paneling that literally feels, right, like you're at the cinemas. Like, this is the level of detail that has been thought about, the custom Italian furniture, like walking into that bar area, and then you've got reflective glass. And what I mean by reflective glass is, so in most areas of the house where you don't have a direct view of the actual view, all you got to look at is the windows on the other side of the house that are reflective. So basically like a mirror, and it mirrors the view on the actual window. You know, the cheese and charcuterie, the cheese and meat basically looks like a style of kitchen where it shows, you know, you have all the meat fridges and the cheese fridges, to the point where there used to be a concrete wall on the outside of the structure that Brad blew a hole in, so that way when you're sitting at the table, you could see through to the view. So this is what I'm talking about when I said earlier about your brain works different, and you're the one, I think I might have mentioned it, maybe OCD, and then you mentioned OCD. I don't like labeling, but literally, I thought I was a bit OCD in detail. You speak to my wife, I piss her off because she's like, you're so detailed, you think of everything, and you know, and then I've seen what you did. I'm just like, that's on another level. And this is where, when people ask, what is it worth? What is it? In my opinion, it's very hard to put a price on it, because you've had a human brain like Brad's on it for 3 years, 60 hours a week, that is looking at every single detail, right? Like, to the point where there's, you know, 52 surveillance cameras. There's security glass. Like, I literally got claustrophobic a little bit, because every door you close, like, all you hear after is like, I'm like, fuck, are we gonna get out of here, man? Like, you know, are we getting set up here?
I think you mentioned as well, like, some of the rooms you've rebuilt like 2 or 3 times, right? Because it just wasn't right.
Yeah, it wasn't up to standard, you know, like.
Well, what's the standard though? Because in my, like, you talk about OCD, and I walk into a house, and wife's like, I can't even remember if it's a tile roof or what color. I got no idea. I'm a bogan from WA that, you know, I've just got no idea with that detail. And I hear you guys talking about different tiles, and you're like, oh, you know your stones. Oh, sorry, your stones. And I was like, how far is too far? How do you know, like what kind of stone? Like, do you spend 50 grand on your stone or 300 grand on your stone? Like, how do you make those decisions? Like, that doesn't compute in my head.
With the stone, it was more like, well, it'd always be like, what's the best stone money can buy? That would be the starting point. And then it would be, how much of it can I put everywhere without being too much? Yeah, what would suit the area? So one of the things that some of the international people that have come through have noticed is the flow of stone in the house. So that was quite a compliment, because I'm not a stone person. But they said that the stone is consistent, but it's all different colors. And so you kind of come with a theme, and every room kind of has its own theme. But again, it's like software. Like, I knew nothing about software when I first started it, but it's amazing what you can learn when you ask enough people. And when you go speak to stonemasons, or you go speak to stone suppliers, you ask them, why is this the most expensive stone in the world? Tell me about it. Like, what is it? Well, the reason it was like the color cut of viola, right, in the kitchen. the white and the purple stuff. White and purple stuff.
I'm putting it in my house at the moment, so
It's in the marketing.
I got
white and purple stuff in the kitchen.
I got chuffed when you had it, because I'm like, fuck, we made a good decision, man. If it was good for if it was good enough for this crazy fucking guy, it's good enough for me.
Well, apart from the Italian mafia, like going to Tuscany and deciding what they think is the most expensive stone, which is pretty much how it works. The reason it was the most expensive is because of the slab size. So typically slabs come in a size about the size of those 4 screens behind you, about 3 meters by 2 meters. And so it's easy to kind of cut up and work with because you've got lots of stone to work with, and you can build big. You would notice that the centerpiece of the kitchen is very large, but the Calacatta Viola only comes in 1800 by 1200 squares or rectangles, and so you need a lot more slabs for it to actually get you anything, and you need a really good stonemason to be able to work with that. So we'll show that to Urban One Stone, Jason Chandler, ex-Surface Paradise full forward, I must add.
Nice.
Kicks very, very straight, and I was pretty sure that he's a big Magpies fan, and I was looking at the stone, and when you look at something long enough, you see something there. Is there a magpie?
And he's never told you, hey,
Someone else saw an eagle, and then someone else saw like some other thing, and so like everyone sees something different. I'm like, I wonder if Jay saw a magpie opportunity. And anyway, so yeah, like you just learn about everything, and I guess you take inspiration from different areas. Like we went to Monaco, and we went to some of the nicest places there, and sort of like pick some ideas from that. And then we went to Dubai, and Dubai obviously has lots of crazy ideas because Dubai literally has no law. So, like the whole fire jet thing, right? It's like saw fire in Dubai, but then we came back here and like, you realize you're in Australia, not Dubai, where the rules apply here. So I'm like, well, how can we make the rules apply? How can we bend the rules to make this work? And so, I think when you have a fountain like mine where, the fire jets sit within the water itself, and there's probably only an inch clearance between water and fire. And then to have obviously 16 of them work was pretty special. It was pretty clever in the end to actually making that work. But yeah, I think every room, like to the cinema point, right? It was obviously a very big size, but I wanted to turn it into 2 different experiences. So the experience of sitting and lounging, watching a movie, and then the experience of standing at the bar or sitting at the bar and maybe watching UFC or boxing or, sport, or, like me, one of my few things I enjoy doing is playing Xbox. I'll play Streets of Rage for like hours, but I don't like sitting down and playing. I like standing up. And so that was kind of like my standing experience. And so even just that room itself, the concealed door that you spoke about, like every area, this is another thing that people mentioned about the house, was that a lot of big houses they walk into feel like they feel big and they feel overwhelming. And you feel lost, like, or you've got to walk 100 meters to get somewhere, right? So at 2,200 square meters, the house is actually built in 3 very functional zones, which was quite deliberate as well. So, the core kind of home function is probably, all within a 20-meter walk. You've got your kitchen, your lounge, your office, your bedrooms, etc. And then you've got underneath, you've got your wellness center, your car garage, you've kind of got your cellars, you've got, kind of your wellness space. And then over on another wing, you have your entertainment. So because you don't use that very often, it is separate to kind of the rest of the house. And then the fun park was one of the first things I built. It was kind of not a useless bit of land, but it was just a garden. And I thought, well, how hard can it be to just pump concrete up there and make that? And it was actually really hard.
And just so you guys know what the fun park is, basically you've got a Michael Jordan half court basketball court with mesh all the way around. You then have basically a golf net that you can, chip into. You've got miniature golf, and they've actually made a little bit of a cricket pitch and mini, not a massive cricket pitch, but it's there, and basically a go-kart track with these electric McLaren cars that we actually raced. I think we mentioned Piastri on there, ripping around.
I was Piastri, or the orange today in salute of supporting him.
100%. But we had a great time with it. I think I was the only one that flushed the shot. I think Carson was hopeless. I'm not sure if you were off that day or not, Brad, but or the short guy wins.
I guess that's one thing.
I think it has to do with the aerodynamics, you know. Us tall guys.
It's only because I had to leave early.
Yeah. The another room that I found, I mean, all the rooms, I was amazed with every single room, but the wellness hub. So this wellness hub with sauna, steam room, cold plunge, showers, Pilates studio, and custom made luxury weights. So tell us a little bit about that room and where the inspiration came from, and obviously the custom weights with. So this is called the Estate, and the Estate has a logo with it, and it's embedded in all of the medicine balls, the Pilates, the yoga mats, even the medicine, the kettlebells. When you think of a kettlebell, this isn't just a kettlebell. And I actually picked up the wrong one because I looked at an 8 kilo one, then I grabbed one, and he's like, "Oh, that's the heavy one." So it's actually 16 kilos. So tell us a little bit about that room.
Yeah, I mean, the again, the house being generally, like when you walk in, the house is kind of, I wouldn't say masculine, but, you know, it's heavy in stone. You know, the feature of the fountain is obviously quite striking. Then you've got the fountain wall, but then you've got the soft green wall to kind of soften everything out. So we always try to blend, you know, greenery along with it. So we built a lot of garden beds into the place. It was originally like a concrete jungle, but we built a lot of green. But the house, generally speaking, has quite a darker theme, and so we chose with some specific rooms like the office and the kitchen just to go a little bit different, a little bit vivid, a little bit wild. And then with the wellness center, because it was built on a different level, we could go, you know, ultra bright. And so I wanted it to feel, you know, like a modern day, not a Pilates studio, but a modern day, you know, wellness retreat. So when you go down there, your eyes, your ears, your nose, like, thinking back on it, I tried to get every sense working as well. So we
smelled good in there.
Yeah, and we had the music going, and like so every room had its own scent, smell, you know, noise. And so for that particular area, when I think about wellness, I think about, you know, trying to calm the nervous system as opposed to, you know, go in there and like pump weights. It does have dumbbells and everything else that you can do, but you know, even the sound system in there, you know, has subwoofers in the wall. So if you really want to crank it, you can. But to me, it was about how do you make someone feel like they're in a 5-star luxury resort whilst working out. And then, you know, separating between the gym and then yoga studio, Pilates studio, and having even different sound systems between the two. And then having, you know, everything hidden, like the wellness sort of recovery area hidden behind a wall. Because again, coming back to that point of you don't want the house to feel too big, and you don't want the house, you want every experience to be enjoyed as its own experience. And so for me, like the inspiration there was just all about how can I get the most aesthetically beautiful gym, but the most functional gym as well at the same time.
And everything's customized. Like when we went in, at first, when I went into that shower area, I didn't walk all the way in. So I walked in and I seen a couple spots. I'm like, oh, showers and toilets. And then when we went back in, that's when we all walked right back in, and you seen a couple of the cold plunges, and then this massive sauna that can fit, I don't even know how many people.
It's about 16, or if you want to sit on each other's laps, maybe a bit more.
Yeah, 16. Well, it depends what kind of party we're having. But on that day, we weren't sitting on each other's laps. I don't know about Shannon. He disappeared for a while.
Yeah.
But
I will say that it's a hot and cold plunge, only because I'll call that I'll be a bit soft. That I was like, when I finished my career, I'm like, I need to get into a cold plunge because I had a hip replacement. I'm like, this is going to help me. And I thought I'd spent 10 years getting in and out of these cold plunges, and it's so unenjoyable. It's good for the brain, but I'm like, the only thing that's going to make me get in a cold plunge is if I'm boiling hot beforehand.
Yeah.
So I put in the hot one right next to it. And so, you know, it's hot colds, basically. You're switching between the two.
Yeah. And then you got this custom sauna, right? So it's not just a sauna you buy off the shelf, fully customized, LED lights all around. Unbelievable area. And then, so we're walking through the house and, you know, different things. He's like, check this out. Everyone turn off their cameras. And all of a sudden he just presses a button. There's another door. The thing opens and there's this custom bar, you know, with all the high-end champagnes and wines and Dom Perignons and scotches, and like it was just one thing after another. And then we're coming up to the master bedroom. So we're walking up, we're going to this master bedroom, which basically is one of the three disguised, I mean, there's all areas that are panic rooms, basically, right? All over the house. And then you're going into this master bedroom and you're walking up, and obviously there's a row of bedrooms on the other side, which we didn't see. And then walking into this master bedroom, and it's all views everywhere. And then what's the height of the ceiling in the master bedroom where the bed is? Like
6 meters.
So 6 meter ceilings you can picture. So for those of you guys that are trying to picture a 6 meter ceiling who aren't watching this, a standard height ceiling in an apartment is anywhere between 2.4 to 2.7 meters, right? So you're talking about two and a half times that height. And then there's this like kind of, it's a rounded dome above the bed. And I come from Toronto, and we have the thing, it's called the Rogers Centre now, but it used to be called the Sky Dome. It was North America's first stadium with a retractable roof. So that way when it rains, 20 minutes, closes, game on. And that's what this thing has. This thing has, I think it's a 6 meter or so, was it? Like retractable roof.
I measured it, but it's big.
Yeah, it's big, it's massive. So
it's bigger than your bed.
Yeah, we're like, what's this? And then he just, again, all automation, presses a button, and literally the roof retracts. And I was telling this to my mate, who's a prominent property developer in Sydney on the weekend where we caught up with. He's like, so it retracts what, like just to a glass roof? I go, no, glass roof. Like it retracts to open sky, and it's literally positioned. So right where you're laying on your master, on your Super King, you're literally looking at the stars. Like that is the level of detail in a property like this. So was that there already, or is that something you added?
Yeah, can't take credit for that one.
Yeah, that one. Yeah, well, that I mean, that is a very interesting, architectural piece. Now, not only is it one massive house, but it also has 2 guest houses, right? So one for staff, if you want staff, and one for basically family and friends. So tell us a little bit about those headquarters.
Yeah, so just going back to the house, so like security is a big thing, but like the way that I thought about the house is sort of splitting it into zones. And so when you're in a zone, like the bedrooms, like you want them kind of locked off. Like as parents, we want privacy from our children. Like, they're never more than a meter from us. And so it was more around how do we create something that's aesthetically pleasing and architecturally pleasing, but then can be lockable as well. So, and then a bunch of the hidden trapdoors, well, they're there for more visual effect, sort of the X factor, the fact that they just happen to disappear into the walls is a pretty cool little thing. But so the guest houses, we did a lot of work to those. We built a secondary driveway, so yeah, we did do a fair bit of construction. So I learned all about concreting and steel and drainage and cantilevered edges because you're trying to build a driveway on a 6-degree hill.
You and Shannon have something in common now. Shannon, he's civil, so he's all about it.
Yep. So the civil guys had a bit of fun there. A lot of guys that just tell you not possible, can't be done. But once you get a good couple of engineers to work with you on, solution driving, then, you sort of ask all the questions, just, okay, what are the limitations and how do we overcome the limitations? And so the main thing for me was getting access to the guest houses. So the house effectively now has 2 gates, number plate recognition cameras that determine which gate opens for you. So if you're Batman, you live there and, you drive up in your Batcar and it opens up the main gate in the garage for you automatically, opens up the inside of the door as well. So it's all security doors inside. But if you're a guest, then it will open up the guest gate, or if you're a delivery truck, it'll notify you the delivery's arrived. You can open up the guest gate for the delivery vehicle. The idea was to really keep a lot of privacy on the main driveway, not just for like privacy and protection, but more because when people used to visit us and we used to have a lot of deliveries, the wife always ordering, online shopping, clothing,
especially when that refresh money hit the account.
Yeah,
exactly. Like, let's go.
Yeah. Well, like you'd be surprised how many people would damage things. They'd back into a wall, or they would just leak oil all over your drive. And there was no way I was letting anyone on this driveway once it was built. And so the guest driveway acts as a couple of different things. So again, thinking about the user experience, it's like for guests or family members, they've got their own car parking spaces undercover. They then take their buggy up to the guest house 1, 2, or 3. And so guest house 1 is a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom kitchen, full kind of 130 square meter home. And then guest house 2 is more of a caretaker quarter, completely self-contained living. And then guest house 3 is again a self-contained living area for either a guest or a worker. And then we designed the track to be usable by, your caretakers as well as your guests. So, there's even passing lanes, there's loading zones. Not that I'm obsessive compulsive over that sort of stuff.
It's like mini Hayman Island.
Yeah, pretty much. And then even the carts that we got, we went through 5 different carts to get the right, feel so that any sort of person could just jump on and drive around there. We learned that Club Car, not that it's a plug for them, but like the best by a mile, like, 4-wheel drive, they would climb up anything, even better than the like Polaris stuff, like just super cool. Anyway, so yeah, the guest houses were built in mind for obviously wealthier people tend to have, staff or workers working there. So it's a good reason to have someone living on site. But then also, a lot of the inquiry has been around, generational living, parents, even if they're wealthy, their kids aren't wealthy. And so a lot of wealthy parents want their kids to stay with them.
Yep.
And so we're finding that, a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-old, even 22, 23-year-old kids will still live with their parents. And to me, I'd live with my parents at 23 still. I wouldn't want to live in the same house. Like I'd live in the guest house or one of the guest houses. That way I can come in at nighttime, park my car, go up, and they won't even know I'm there. So it's completely independent living. But
The another thing that amazed me was a full glass lift that goes up. What is it? 3 stories? Is it 3-story full glass lift? And then we're walking down the stairs that wrap around the glass lift, and we get to my favorite room, and I think the boys' favorite room, which was a 9-car garage, and with this beautiful black flaked epoxy floor, and then you got this massive turntable in the middle of this garage. And out of everything though, one of the small things that stuck out to me the most in that garage, as small as it is, was each parking spot has a screen right on the wall that with the emblem of the car that sits there. So Porsche had the Porsche emblem, that's for the Porsche. Lexus, Ferrari. And it's just, again, very easy. Like I've been in many beautiful garages with beautiful cars, but that was my first time that I've actually been to one, right? And I've seen the turntables and they're amazing with the LEDs all around, but just that level of detail, just to go, that's where the Ferrari goes, that's where the Lambo goes, that's where and that's what I mean about that OCD. So when people are like, oh, what was it like? You can't explain it, because when you start going through, you start thinking like, not even an architect, right? And I've dealt with a lot of architects. You guys have dealt with a lot of architects, would have that level of detail to actually go through and go, this goes here, this is what's going to happen, this is how this is going to activate. Like every 3 meters, you've got sensors.
Architects don't think like that though. Like
they don't.
I've met a few, and they have their process, and they have their drawings, and they have, like, don't get me wrong, they can design beautiful structures.
Yeah.
But these are user experience.
That's what you've done, right? So I can see you taking, like, not many people can design a house like this, and I can see that you've taken your, 20 odd years or whatever it's been, 15, 20 years in your tech space, and using that tech experience, that tech user experience, because that's what tech is all about, right? A lot of it is user experience.
An unforgiving user experience. If you're like, the best example of user experience for those of you who can cast your minds back to the first iPhone, people would wonder, like, how is it that a child can pick up an iPad and use it? And what went wrong with Windows 7 when they brought out their phone and made every icon square and green? Like, remember that? Yep. So, like, Apple used the things that we instinctively, they brought out 3 things that were kind of revolutionized. It's common knowledge now and people have forgotten about it, but they used swiping, which was the big one that no one really used before on phones. But the two things they used was colors and shapes. So every one of their icons was a different color. So if your kid wanted to play music, they knew that it was ready orange, right? If they wanted to make a call, it was green. If they wanted to make, go to Safari, it was blue. Whereas you got a Windows 7 phone and they try to compete with Apple and everything was green. Because I thought, it looks more uniform, but it defeats the purpose of user experience.
Yeah, correct.
And that's how kids can pick up, like my 2-year-old can pick up an iPad and use it because she knows how to swipe.
Mm.
She knows how to gesture. She knows what colors to look for. She knows shapes. She doesn't know words yet. So that's the difference between user experience and like functional design.
I mean, like to the point where, every 3 meters, you've got, sensors in the ceiling that knows you're there. So lights automatically turn on and, blinds automatically open and curtains and these types of things, like it's very, it's just the level of thought that is gone to it. And to me, you can't put a price on it. And that's what I think need to experience.
It's the hard thing about renovating, but it's also the good thing about renovating is that when you build as an architect from the scratch, you've never walked in the house. So you can't feel it breathe, feel it move. You can't understand it. Whereas when you spend 2 years in a place and you've spent like a house that size, you can be overwhelmed with the size of it, which is why we sort of compartmentalized the place.
Yeah, like Carson, Shannon, how did you guys feel? Like I felt like it was big, but I didn't feel at any point that I was disjointed or disconnected from space to space, which you said before. A lot of these big houses are just these big boxes. How did you guys feel when you were in it?
Exactly what was just said. It's not far to get from anywhere. It was quite comfortable in all the areas you're in. So from the lounge room to the kitchen to the dining was a very normal, not as in a normal house. It was very glamorous, but it wasn't too hard to get around the place. You weren't in this ginormous box.
Yeah. How about you, though?
Yeah, I think you nailed it where you said the way it's been segmented, the downstairs area, and then you kind of got that living, which is your wellness and bits and pieces, and then kind of that living space. And I think you mentioned, when you're living there, you spend 80% of your time there, and then you got your entertainment area. Like I like how it's got its own little part. I mean, for me, I love this the entrance and the waterfall with the AFL Oval. But and it's an oval entry piece, but like it's pretty phenomenal. Like to have, like I would never think to put gold into like that level of detail. Like once again, it just blows my brain with I think that wow factor when you rock up, you definitely get that, and then just a little the things that you were mentioning as we're walking around, like the tiles and how they kind of buffed and smoothed over, like all those little things that
Mitred.
Mitred. Sorry, mate. Like I said, I was a bogan. So it's like those little things that get lost on me, but for your buyer, they're going to notice.
They're the things that you don't like. It's like, again, I keep coming back to the iPhone. You don't know why you like it. You just like it.
Yeah.
Right? And that's what good design is.
Yeah.
So you walk through and you go, that looks really nice. I don't know why or how it looks nice. It just looks nice.
And
even the front door, it was like a bloody backbox.
It's like a 10-meter front, 1,000-kilo solid steel front door.
Yeah, it was literally like, what is it, 250 mil thick? Like it.
Yeah, it's almost 400 mil.
And then when you're walking through the bar area, right?
But that was an exercise in itself, right? So when you buy a house like that, for me, it had a 10-meter void as the front door, but it was built in horizontal strips. And look, it had copper in it. It was cool.
You want it.
But I'm like, if you got a 10-meter void like that, I want the vertical height. Yeah. And I looked at a lot of houses in Dubai, and because construction is so cheap over there, they can do these monstrosities. But I really wanted to open it up. We put in all new glass and went floor to ceiling with glass. That was obviously an exercise in itself, but
and then
on that one.
I want to ask about construction once we're done talking about the house itself.
I just want to add one more thing. And then you walk through the bar area, and like it's got this kind of nightclub feel, but very sophisticated. And then you're looking out to the view, and then you look down to the hedge, and even the hedge, right, has been cut into the logo of the estate property. Like that is the amount of detail. So when you look down, everywhere you look, you're seeing the logo all throughout the house as well.
It was like the logo took 2 full weeks to design and implement.
And it's like what it is
Maybe we got it trademarked.
it's brand.
So anyone else out there with an estate house, I'm in for you.
But it's brand, right? Like
I'm on for you. That's how I'm going to make all the money. You know, I'm going to chase anyone else that calls their house the estate to be like, it's actually my possession. Or give me the name.
it's a branded residence. Right?
But it's actually, if you look at the estate logo, so every branding agency will tell you that there's always multiple reasons why you create a logo, right? And so it's built on 8,888 square meters. And so to the naked eye, you wouldn't have noticed much about the eights, but everything is built in eights.
Yeah.
I mean, not so much about the Chinese kind of heritage around eights being a lucky number, but I played into what I had. But the logo is essentially 4 eights joined together, but then it also represents the shape of the house being on a hill and the ground, the middle floor, the upper floor being the guest house. And then it pays homage to the wine barrels that were built in the roof, is the 2 big circles. And then it also represents 5 circles being the 5 elements that are represented in the fountain. So the earth, wind, fire, gold, water, and dirt as well. So so even the thought behind the logo was, again, was it too far? Probably, you know, but I felt like a house like this deserved a name.
Well, like I'm trying to center my bench top to the window in my house. So, I mean, I'm trying to.
It was very depressing going home after the
Shannon, construction. We'll give you 5-10 minutes, then we're gonna wrap up.
No, it's quick. It's all to you. But how did you go managing the trades? Like, there's so much detail and such high quality products. How did you go actually managing that? Was there a lot redone? Were you just hanging over them like a hawk?
Yeah, it was tough. Like I had good people to help me day to day, because so some of the challenges you run into with being young is that people think you're inexperienced and going to rip you off. And for some reason, people think that the wealthier you are, the more stupid you are. You know, it's like they come to the house, they see the house, they see the size of it. Oh, 30% to this or 40% to this. It's like, I couldn't quite get my head around it. And so what I did early days, particularly with design, is I would hand sketch things in pencil, and I would send them emails using an email address that didn't have my name in it or any connection to the house. And I would say, can you quote this? And I wouldn't let them on site until they'd got fixed quotes and stuff like that. And that was really only for things that they could fabricate off site. For most parts, I had to run on hourly rates with people because they just simply couldn't quote me anything. Like the fountain was an hourly rate from 9 different trades, including engineers. Right? So I just had to hold on and be like, I hope it's not too painful. And it became very, very painful in terms of cost, time, like execution, and you just, basically just become a punching bag. But so the age definitely worked against me. And whenever I'd come on site, I would try not to let people know that I was the owner. I'd either pretend that I was the project manager, or I just wouldn't say anything about it.
They probably wouldn't even believe that you're the owner, to be honest with you, right? Like not many 39-year-olds, have that kind of wealth anyway. So it's probably easy to believe that.
Yeah, and it worked out better that way.
Yeah.
Because again, the jealousy sets in, like the resentment sets in.
Yeah.
Money does funny things to people.
Yeah.
After a while, they get kind of pissed that you're building this monstrosity, and like what people thought is, you've taken a massive house and just made it even better. Like, so there was a lot of risk. It was huge. They don't understand like the risk that you're going through trying to do it. And I think for me the construction side was probably the most similar to running a startup in terms of the number one thing you have to have is a smile on your face and patience. Because you come on site and things are going wrong, not to plan, or they're taking too much time, or they're costing too much money. And, it's always a we problem. It's, you often get hit with, that can't be done, or I can't do it, or I've gotten halfway through and it's not possible. And it's a case of, okay, well, what's challenging you the most? Like, how can we work through this? And the minute that you diffuse it from a angry foreman going, it's your fault, fucking fix it, or else, that doesn't really work anymore with any trade in any industry. I don't know anyone that's performed better after being berated, or certainly won't work with a good attitude. And so whether it's football, I learned that very early there. Business, I've worked with engineers, I've worked with salespeople, marketers, like they're all very, very different. And just the same with tilers are very, very different to concreters, are very, very different to interior designers, are very, very different to civil guys. Like everyone's there for different reasons,
You got to learn everyone's love language.
pretty much.
All right.
Yeah.
They want words of affirmation. Do they want a case of beer? Right? Do they want a bit of touch, pat on the back?
Yeah. Well, I know it's funny. You learn early that like a $50 case of beer is better than like, paying them more. It's like,
Yeah, it's crazy.
you guys realize how money works, right? Like, no, okay. But yeah, it is. It's about showing that you care.
Dude.
And I guess I had a bunch of people that were very helpful along the way, but I had 50 or 60 that were tough to work with. So yeah, I think that if I did it again, I would probably distance myself a little bit more, probably spend more time in the spreadsheets and the design phase and knowing that it can be executed. You've got to pay a little bit more that way. Like, I used to look at builders who charged 20% margin, and I did a development outside of this house and it took me probably 20 hours to execute 5 townhouses after a block of land I bought. I thought this is pretty easy. But when you want to go to this level of detail, you have to oversee absolutely everything and be prepared to be in conflict constantly around what can and can't be achieved. And I don't think there was one area that was done easily. Even just recreating the ceiling in the cinema, right? You can see the beauty of it now. The thing is, I would never show people the finished product because if I showed them, they'd put the price up. So I'd never show them, this is what I want it to look like.
Yeah.
I would just say, I just need you to cut. I need you to replaster the ceiling. I need you to bring the steel down. I need to reframe it. I need it to be staggered. That's all I would tell them. And I get a good price for it. But then I'd tell my LED guy, okay, all I want is just LEDs here. Like I said.
Yeah.
The painter didn't know what he was doing by the time I finished. So yeah, it was kind of like doing it with your hands behind your back as well. Like I could have just gone in and gone, there's my picture.
Yeah, it would cost you a lot more.
Yeah. And so I think, doing it all again, I think, it would be easier second time around, just like running a startup would be easier, third time around. But you got to learn on the tools, right? It's got to adjust as the day goes. Actually, the biggest thing I ran into was rain. The rain frustrated me more than anything. I think in the last 2 years, we had the wettest summers of all time, and most of what I needed to do was lay tiles and lay concrete, and I couldn't do either. And so it became very, very frustrating. But I can't finish the inside of the house until all that's done because of the dust and the concrete that may seep its way through and damage everything inside the house. So, you got to learn a lot of patience, and to do anything well, as you guys know, which takes a lot of time, effort, teamwork, patience, and, a lot of dedication of, long hours, late nights and setbacks.
How do you go about choosing an agent? I can imagine you'd have a few coming through and, they're going to buy the listing, which is what happens. This could be worth, stupid amount to try and, are you looking for someone that just understands the detail, what you got for, what you went through and what you're trying to sell, or you just, I guess it'd be hard not to go for the guy that, or girl that says it's worth the most as well. So what's your thought process when you were going through that interviewing phase, and why did you land where you landed?
I guess finding someone that was on a similar mental trajectory as me. So that's it. Like you go to any agent, they'll tell you a price, right? But I don't know the price. So, and I like to think I know the real estate market pretty well. I like to think I know what I've done pretty well. But it's for anyone to come out to my place and say, this is the price, they're wrong, because it's like, how do you define what a piece of art's worth? Like the value's in the eye of the beholder, right? So it's going to suit someone for some reason, for some amount of money, and that I don't know what it is. And so anyone that would come out and pitch me a range or a price or anything like that, I would hesitate. To me, it was more around what's the process that you're going to take to drive this to market. And, I guess when Michael came through, he was very reserved and methodical. He would take in everything that I had to say very little. Kind of reminded me of myself on how I would do it. So yeah, I think for me, yeah, big numbers are irrelevant. You can throw those around. It's more about how are you going to execute this. It's a bit out of the box. This is not a normal place to sell.
It's a one of one.
And so, for me, it was like, a combination of things. It was research and reputation. It was who plays in this market and this upper end. And then ultimately it came down to not an interview, but like, what drives you? Like, why do you want to do this? Why do you want to embark on something like this? And so those are the questions that mattered the most to me. It was like, what's in it? Not much what's in it for you, right? It's always like there's money involved, right? It's a commercial thing, but it's like the money is really irrelevant. Like, take the money out. What's going to make you obsess about this every night when you go to bed? Yeah. What's going to make you think about the edge cases or who else to go to? How to put a square peg in a round hole? Like, and then why are you going to work hard for me? Like, you don't know me. You don't really, know my house that well. Like, and so these are the types of questions that were important to me. Like, the why is way more important than the what. But like they got a great team there. They've got a fantastic outlook on marketing. Like, I think they're one of the most progressive in terms of marketing.
They just won the award at the REIQ, I think, best agency for media or marketing. One of them I just seen yesterday, which is good.
But it's all about the drive behind the person who's ultimately putting their face to it. So, I carry risk when I put my face to it. So you talked about, what kind of guy am I going to meet? Like, I really didn't want to be on the face of this place.
Yeah, well, we when I was driving, right, because how we obviously Carson mentioned it to our booker, going, hey, reach out to this guy, and reached out. Next thing you know, 3 days later, we're getting a private tour. So I'm driving, and I know nothing about Brad. And I told him when we were there, I'm like, I'm driving there going, this guy's either going to be a lad, right, or he's going to be a wanker, one or the other, right? Because this is the way we think, right? Like, it's like, oh, fuck, a young guy sold, tech company. It's that whole stigma, right? And that's what I told him on that day. I'm like, I was really wondering what type of person you're going to be. And it's great to see, guys like yourself that sit here humbly, that will come on a podcast and not be like, nah, why don't I going to go on a podcast? I'm too good for that. I don't need to go on the podcast, because as much as we're trying to help you, you're helping us as well, right? By telling a cool story and doing a little bit of a different podcast like this and having that B-roll over so people can actually have that user experience rather than just looking at a screen and it's just us. No, that's why I'm breaking down the wellness room, show the wellness room, show the gym, show the retractable roof, show these things, because most people will never see anything like this ever again. So look at it, appreciate it, respect it, because this is something that is an architectural piece. It's a piece of art in my eyes. And, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule now that you're semi-retired and the house is finished. So I'm assuming you have nothing to do. Nah, joking. No, really appreciate it. And I think, and giving us a private tour of the house as well. Do you guys have anything to add, Carson?
Oh, look, my only other thing is, we do a lot of property development and side of things. So my brain always goes there. If you were to do this again, you see it in America as well. I love watching those shows. They'll buy something to 15 million and they'll spend 10 on it and sell it for 50. Like, if you were to do this as a business, which you probably won't if the pain you've gone for the last 3 years, but and we've had a couple of luxury builders come on that we haven't released yet, but is it less painful just to buy a block of dirt or knock down a house and build it? Like, if you were to do this luxury high end, what tips would you give to someone? Not that there's going to be probably a lot of people in this space, but like at that ultra high net worth range, because you're thinking a little bit different than just probably how I'm thinking for a lot of things. What little tips or what would you give to someone that wanted to do that? Don't
find someone who's batshit crazy like me who's done it. Because that's actually like a bit of a market, right? That we found that is coming to us is someone that wants a big house, that wants a nice house, but they don't want to go through the 5 years of pain to get to it, because they'll either end up dead, divorced, or all of the above, right? And just like building a startup, building a house that you want to exactly your specs. Like, I feel like I have a very, very patient builder, and architects and finishers, and like they'll get you 90% of the way there. It's the last 10% that makes it your real dream home. By the time you finish building it, you probably hate it or yourself anyway. And then the other thing is, because of the time elapsed, which is one of the things that people don't really count in terms of value. Like you talked about my hours, right?
What's that worth, right? 60 hours a week, three years from an executive that just sold a business for 200. Like, this is what I mean. It's in my opinion, it is, you cannot put a price. It's priceless. It's worth whatever that person in the market goes, you know what, that all needs to be taken into consideration, or else, you know what, you're not going to sell it. Like, that's the reality, right?
Yeah. So I think, like, it is definitely difficult to build a big house these days. It's just because of the time and effort. And then what happens is if you've got a family too, your kids will age significantly by the time you're at design phase, by the time you're at build, or actually able to move in. And so one of the things I did with my place was make it so that here's the key, you've moved in, like, it's effectively yours tomorrow. So again, with the whole user experience is around going, I've already thought of the things that you needed to think about, and I've already solved the problems you needed to solve. Here's the keys. Here's the, not the instruction manual, but basically it's just turnkey, kind of ready to move in. So that was the aim, really, for me. That was the perfectionism coming out. So, but look, if you are, on a serious note, if you are going to attempt something like this, as the old saying, expect to take 3 times longer and cost 3 times more than you originally wanted it to, and expect to be disappointed by it. A lot of people, along the way. Like, there are some that rise to the top and help you, but nearly, 9 times out of 10, you'll have to spend the like, if you want something done like to your standard, you have to micromanage it yourself, even if you've got people around helping you, because no one sees your vision. Like, so like a startup, again, bringing it back, like, you have a vision, but it's your vision. Like,
yeah.
The engineers have a different reason to turn up to work. The sales guys have a different reason to turn up to work. Same as the marketers, same as the accountants. Like, think about all the different functions of a business. Everyone turns up to work for something different. And so your role as the CEO, or your role as the visionary of the build, is to make sure that everyone is accounted for and everyone is sort of loved and wants to come back and help you.
Brad, thank you so much for coming on. It's been a great interview. It's obviously went a little bit over time, but I think this is one of those ones where it's a great story, and there's a lot to talk about and a lot to view. And for anyone that wants to know more about this property, see it online. You've got Michael Kalashi and Jamie Harrison from Kalashi here on the Gold Coast, top luxury real estate agency here, that are representing this property. Auction is on November 28th. Where's the auction?
In the bar, right?
It's in the bar. So it's on site in the bar.
I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be somewhere on site.
There's only the fountain, just in case someone.
It'll be near it'll be near the cold plunge. If the offer's not good enough, you're going to put in the cold plunge until it is. But yeah, so reach out to them, and it's 160 Talai Road. Talai, you just Google that in realestate.com. If you guys have been, like I said, been living under a rock and haven't seen this marketed yet, because it is literally everywhere. It's got to be probably one of the most expensive marketing campaigns of any house on the Gold Coast, I'd assume. So yeah, reach out to them, and hope you guys enjoy this pod. Brad, thanks again for your time.
Anytime.
And hopefully we get to race cars one more time. See you on the next one, guys.
Hey there, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Unemployable. If you'd like to watch another episode, just click there.